American Indians, on a broad scale in this country, are viewed in a very different way than what we have access to in this class this afternoon. Sam, during the first week, he did a little bit on mascots, right? And I think there's even one person, he was mentioning that there was a few people who wanted to talk more about this.
So I did talk to, actually after class at one point, I went up and talked to Sam, because at one point we went over the Washington Redskins controversy and all of that. And I actually decided to write about that in Packback at one point. But I was thinking I found it a very interesting subject because I'm also multiracial like these two. I'm part white, or part Caucasian, I should say, but I'm also part Native American. I'm a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Chippewa tribe up in Michigan, Canada area. Sault Ste. Marie is a little island right in between Lake Superior and Lake Huron. In case you're wondering where it is.
Do you know your language?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
But I do know which lineage goes back there. It's on my dad's side because I'm only part Native American, and so is my dad, and so is my grandma. I believe it was my great grandma was full Ojibwe. Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, what do you think is the hitch? Because we're saying, like, honestly, we're not okay with Native mascots, but we want to talk about it. So what is your thought, especially as someone who is Native?
So one thing I can definitely say is that the mascots do not represent us properly. For example, let's take the Washington Redskins. I know that's not the one up there, but like the Washington Redskins, a lot of people.
Wait, and Tyler, we're gonna that is the one up there. Oh. He's a Redskins fan right here.
Oh, there we go.
So you're saying they don't represent us. They don't represent us properly, and.
I actually don't like hearing the word because we say our word. It's the R word.
Like
this is bad as saying the N word.
And with that, for you, what else are you saying? It doesn't represent us properly, but.
But it's kind of. I actually, when I wrote about this, I actually went back and looked into, okay, how did the Redskins term come about?
Yeah.
And in reality, it actually came out from a big misunderstanding back during colonial times. The natives, when the colonists first came around and the natives started communicating with them, the natives found that the Europeans kept referring to themselves as white people. And we were confused because their skin wasn't the same color as snow, so where are they getting white from? Mm-hmm. And so what we turned to, and the Ojibwe was actually one of the groups that kind of thought about this. What we turned to was the medicine wheel. And it has 4 colors that all represent different directions.
Yeah. So, like Tyler was saying, right? Mascots for a lot of Native people feel we're not being represented because it's a mascot, it's an icon, it's an image. But there's also this idea out there that if we get rid of mascots, then we're getting rid of Native people in our minds. Or wait a second. Mascots, Redskins, that's like one of the highest grossing teams, like from all the sports, next to the New York Yankees. Their paraphernalia sales are very high, right? It's a way to honor people. Native people don't mind about being called Redskins. It's a way to keep Native people in people's minds, that we hold them to something that is praised. I don't buy it. And I want to hear from people who, honestly, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I wore Redskins gear for a very long time and repped that team until the other part of history that I learned is that redskin also refers to being skinned.
Yeah.
And part of our
That's the original term of there was an ad put out on Bounty that was put out For men, that was basically 50 cents.
I think, I'm not too sure exactly how much,
Yeah.
but it wasn't only men. So
And it was more for women and children.
Exactly.
And so the term scalping, because of all the blood that was produced from scalping someone, the term redskin came about. So when you say that it's okay to say that word, it's actually not. In my book, it's not, and in all of my people that I know that I've ever talked to, it's not. Because it deals with a very, very hard time of scalping. And even, oh yeah, the Indians, they invented scalping. Actually, it was the French that started scalping our people. And so we said, well, that's what you do, then we're going to do it too. And somehow it got coined with us as we scalp people. So.
And you might hear some things say that push up on other teachings that you've been taught. But remember, one of the world's largest genocides took place here. Not just in Pennsylvania. I'm talking about in this country, as we know it, as the United States. One of the largest genocides in all human history.
Including Central America and South America.
And during that time, in order to kill people and to justify it and to motivate others, right? In order for us as human beings to bring ourselves to the point where we are committing genocide, we have to create incentives. War is expensive. And bounties, being given a bounty for a man's skin, a woman's skin, and a child's skin, was part of our history. Not just Native people's history, because it is Native peoples whose skins were being rewarded with money. This is all of our history who sit here in this room, who have the privilege of going to an awesome school that now exists. And guys, when Am and I are sharing this with you, I hope you can feel that we're coming from a place of being really open, a lot of love, sharing teachings, and sometimes also sharing some things that are a little bit uncomfortable. It's just a different side of history that we're talking about. It's just being talked about from maybe some who haven't won, from the losing side, if you will. But I'm not going to call us a loser. I'm not going to say that there isn't a reason to be proud of this heritage. What I'm pointing out is that, what is this kid learning? He's sitting at a Redskins game. He's learning something about the images that he's being portrayed. Take on some of the teachings that Amen gave you earlier this afternoon. He said that in this tradition, kids are learning from the start. They're learning from seeing, observing, listening. What is he learning?
And I also want to just kind of add, like, what if we change that face to painted black man? How would that work? It wouldn't. People would be very, very offended.
We talked about how he's not learning to associate this term with a people. He's learning to associate it with an icon and something that's owned by a group of people associated with sports. So.
Nice. Yeah, so he's learning that natives are an icon. He's not associating it with actual people. And it's really interesting you brought up that it's something that's owned. What's important about acknowledging that he's learning that it's something that's owned?
It's controlled by the people who own it, and its identity can be changed by that, and therefore the people are like not seen as people, but like seen as something that can also be changed by the media surrounding that.
Brilliant. Yeah, when something is owned, it can be controlled by those who own it, as opposed to people who are generating their identity for themselves.
Hi. When I was talking to my partner, I was telling her that I feel like this kid isn't learning anything from this because, I mean, call me ignorant, which I am ignorant on this topic. I had no idea, like, the origins of the word redskin until right now. And I always knew it was offensive, but I just thought it was like that they had copier like, skin tones. Like, I didn't know it was from scalping, and like I was just shook. I was telling her that. So. That's all.
Thanks. We got someone down here.
Going back to the concept of ownership, it's also I think helpful to point out that the people who own the brands aren't from the group that they're necessarily portraying.
Yeah. The people who own the brands aren't of the group that they're portraying. And there isn't any collaboration. Yeah.
There's not one Native person on the team.
So with that being said, some of this is really serious, and keep going with the branding or how Native people are in so many ways not viewed as people. I just want to play this quick video. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
There was a comment on the live stream a few weeks ago when we were talking about mascots, and somebody said that if we get rid of the mascots, then we will forget completely about natives. But I would argue that we already have forgotten about them and don't even include them in our thought process to begin with. And I was also a person who was, and I don't even say the name anymore, but I was a Washington, D.C. football fan for many years. I went to the stadium all the time. I loved the team, and now all of them should change. It's unacceptable when you actually look at the history and the things that people have gone through.
And there's other ways to honor by actually learning the correct history rather than starting with a team name.
Exactly. What's it going to cost Angelica if she goes through her life and people, when they learn about her being Native, ask her about putting on a certain dance, or she goes to a Halloween party with her kindergarten friends and there's someone dressed up like Pocahontas? What's that going to do to Angelica Ice Bear? How's that going to affect her identity and what she's proud of?
I think it's going to affect her in many ways because what she's taught is the history according to us and how it's happened because we've been living it and we kind of still live it. But for her to experience that is damaging. She feel like she has to hide that, her identity, which, probably some of you do. Hide that identity because you care about what other people think about you. And so I don't want her to do that. I want her to be proud of who she is, proud of where she came from, and always stay connected.
Yeah, and it's complicated. So the video we showed you is done by the 1491s, and the guy who was dressed in the hipster outfit and doing the little shake, he's actually Native, but he looks white, right? And then you could see people who were wearing Native gear and might not have that lineage. But then you saw Native people who were dressed in non-Native gear. The question is, how do you let people define and be who they are from all the places of their background and not already put on how they're supposed to be? Because maybe Angelica doesn't get embarrassed about who she is. Maybe she starts pretending that she's supposed to be something else. That still leads to an identity crisis. You think about what's happening on reservations right now, and some of you are already aware of the high suicide rates that are happening among youth on reservations. Think about youth. Think about messages that they're receiving about what's popular, what's okay, and what an Indian is supposed to look like in the past. Can a person be Indian and Native and still wear Penn State gear? And go to a football game and still on the weekend attend a ceremony with their mom and dad where they're honoring the Earth Mother? Can they be that complex? Somehow we've been putting limits on that by expecting people to be certain ways. Or not taking in what's complicated because we only know groups of people through an icon.